So today we've had autumn budget and we've had two main property related announcements made. The first is that around high value council tax, and the second is around property related income tax. So Nick, which do you think of those two is the most unexpected and the biggest point?
Yeah, I suppose unexpected was the additional 2% for property related income.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all heard noise around stamp duty changes, the potential for higher value properties to fall in a little bit more around the additional tax burden. So yeah, I would say the additional 2% for property related income. There was noise around national insurance contributions being included. So in some ways it's sort of a bit of a replacement for that. In terms of say, our existing sort of clients, it's not going to affect everybody. It's only going to affect those that have got buy-to-let properties, so those that are landlords, having to obviously add an additional 2% on their existing marginal tax rate. So it is going to give a little bit of a squeeze for rental income for those. But on the plus side, there could be a positive noise for those that are seeking to buy a home that more landlords might be thinking about selling and not becoming landlords anymore.
Because ultimately this is a further squeeze. It's been seen now for many years on landlords.
I mean, the last 12 to 18 months have been significantly harder for landlords around the additional stamp duty that was obviously brought in last year, but also the squeeze on mortgage rates, renters' rights bills. Lots of things have come in legislation-wise, which has meant that being a landlord isn't necessarily what it was 10, 15 years ago, and the success that everyone had around buying a house and renting it out and making a significant profit perhaps isn't as what it once was. I think this is just another thing that landlords are going to be putting their head in their hands about. But on the other side of it, in terms of, say, residential purchases, first-time buyers, those looking to move up the ladder, it could mean that there's more properties come on the market. So it could mean there's an additional, support for us in terms of helping those that are watching that might want to get some support around making a purchase or even selling and obviously getting rid of their existing buy-to-let portfolio.
And what we've seen now for a number of years is the increase around limited company ownership of buy-to-let properties. The detail obviously needs to be seen on this, but it looks like it's affecting the sole trader owner as opposed to the limited company director owner. As
things currently stand today, it sounds like it's only going to be those that are going to be charged at 2% that is held in personal names. I'm sure there's going to be devil in the detail around how that's going to affect limited company buy-to-let owners around extracting the funds from their limited company.
Dividends, savings.
So for those that are using a limited company for their buy-to-let portfolio but then withdrawing an income, they're still going to get hit with this additional burden. However, sufficient sort of tax advice, etc., may well be to actually keep those profits within the limited company to avoid the extra dividend tax you have to pay. And that's where it comes now for those entering of the buy-to-let market, that if you want to buy a buy-to-let, you are really having to weigh up the difference between buying in a personal name and a limited company now, and the tax benefits and the costings, etc., for both sides. It's now weighing far more towards a limited company ownership. But that's where obviously we're in a position where we can support and assist those that are looking to do that. So all being well, we're going to be in that sort of world whereby we can help everybody, not necessarily just those that are looking to buy in a personal name.
And like you alluded to at the start, there was a lot of speculation of national insurance contributions coming into effect. It's a different way of increasing tax on a property landlord. But potentially a lot easier for a landlord to actually administer in terms of just paying 2% extra rather than dealing with trying to pay national insurance on rental income.
There's obviously going to be lots of complexities that will get ironed out over the next weeks and months. Obviously, this plan, it means that it's actually not going to come into effect until April 2027. There's time for everyone to understand the impact on them, and maybe perhaps for those that think, right, that's it, that's the final nail in the coffin, to start thinking about offloading the asset that they've got. But we're certainly in that sort of position now where this is just another thing that landlords are being hit by the government in terms of taxation, and it's being treated like a business.
Yeah.
So for those that were maybe accidental landlords, those that maybe rented out their existing or their previous main residence and changed it to rent it out, those are the individuals that will probably now think that that's not a good idea, because of the costs that come with it.
Yeah.
Whereas those that, it is a strategy around their retirement or something around their own investment portfolio, it's just an additional cost that gets swallowed within the rest of it.
Being a professional landlord.
So there's going to be some people that this completely turns away their idea of doing what they want to do.
Yeah. But
there'll be others that will accept it's part of the course. Part of a business cost that is ultimately what they've got to pay. I think there's definitely going to be, people that want to come off it. I think maybe from our side of it might be the impact of what that might mean on mortgage lenders, what they end up doing.
Because a big thing that could be considered is rental stress testing, which dictates the affordability of landlords. We could see some changes following this announcement that actually gets a bit harder as well.
Well, we've always had issues when interest rates have gone up, but we've never really had to experience income tax bandings going up. So lenders now might start thinking about adding the additional stress test upon, is this mortgage self-financing?
A 10% increase in income tax for a basic taxpayer. 2% sounds like 2, but it's actually 10% more.
Obviously that, and then, as like you mentioned, the mansion tax as such. I mean, I'm not quite sure it's going to affect as many of our clients.
But it's definitely something that will affect regions. Southwest, we have a 50% higher average house price than the rest of the country. Obviously, the Southeast is going to be heavily impacted by this. And Rachel Reeves referenced today that 1% of properties will be affected. Estimate. Obviously, a lot of speculation around mansion tax that was going to be introduced. But today it seems like the actual amount that's been introduced was a lot less as a number, as an annual charge, than what speculation was.
I suppose the impact for a lot of people will be, how is it paid? And is it something that gets charged every year with my council tax? And what scope do I have to actually, do you know what? I might own a £2 million house, but my income doesn't mean that I'm earning.
Of course, which will be very common.
For those that might have bought in, say, London in 1960, and have had a house all the way up and that's now worth over 2 million, that an extra £2,500 a year might not be something they've got in their pocket.
Like you said, around the rental income tax, devil's going to be in the detail, but Rachel Reeves did allude to the potential of looking at the rolling up based on disposal or based on deceased. So it'll be interesting to see what that is. But certainly the number itself, £2,500 above 2 million, 7.5 above 5 million. The early speculation was 0.5% of value per year. If you think that on a £2 million house, that's a vast difference of what's been introduced to what was being purported by media might be introduced. So overall, it seems like a really good outcome for those individuals.
I think so. And I think, like, we all went into it thinking it was going to be doom and gloom. I think in terms of our world, it's perhaps not been as significantly affected as perhaps a lot of people might have thought. And in fact, it's almost sort of business as usual, really, in that, there's no change to stamp duty, there's no complexities around, additional income tax burdens for people other than property-related income. As perhaps the only squeeze might be on, personal allowance thresholds being kept at where they're at. That, with wage increase, it's going to push people into the higher rate brackets. But in terms of, say, mortgage lending, I think that we've come out quite well out of it, really.
And obviously, 2 big events we just covered. There was some smaller things that came out that will have a huge impact to some people in the country. There was the removal of the 2-child limit related child benefit, etc. What's your views on that as to how that might go on and help aspiring homeowners?
Definitely. I mean, there's plenty of lenders that will use child benefit as a form of income to support employed income. So absolutely, those that have more than 2 children and receive the child benefit, that is going to be usable income that can be used for their mortgage affordability. In some respects, for some people, that could be an extra 10, 15, 20,000 pounds worth of borrowing. I think that's a positive. So I think for those people that are looking to go up the ladder or buy their first home, that ordinarily affordability was very, very tight, this could push them into the brackets of properties that they can own.
Yeah. And then that in conjunction with minimum wage increases, it's supporting potential affordability options for people to become homeowners that have had aspirations to for a number of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, all of our advisors are going to be skilled to help people that are in that situation. Yeah. And that's where it's really important for a lot of people, where necessary, to get in contact, to have a discussion with one of the advisors to see what their borrowing options are, really.
Yeah, great. Thank you for watching. We hope you found this video useful and valuable. If you need help, support or guidance, please reach out. We'd be more than happy to help. And if you've loved this video, please like and subscribe.